Hello, and welcome to Keeper's Corner Podcast, where we're breaking down anything and everything Utica City FC related. With your hosts, as always, Matthew Sterling, Michelle Brooks, and Brandon Brooks. Let's go. Hello again, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Keeper's Corner Podcast. As always, Matt, Brandon, and Michelle are here. We'll start with our recap of Sunday's 8-4 loss to Baltimore. At the odd, not all around terrible performance. There were stretches where the team looked good and other parts where they looked really not so good. But I guess we'll start with the usual. Your stat that tells the story.
Oh, you didn't want to hear about how I felt about the game?
Yeah, you didn't want to hear about how we felt about the game. Fine. My stat that says the story, that tells the story, the entire fourth quarter.
I was going to say, what is it? 4 unanswered in the fourth?
Mm-hmm.
4 unanswered in the fourth is correct.
Oh, yeah, that's a good stat that tells the story. I'll find a different one though, because Michelle took that one.
Damn right I did. That was just a travesty. That was just a train wreck.
That was the third quarter curse coming out in the fourth quarter.
And the first.
I felt like we had a good second and third. Just to sidetrack here, I felt like we had a fairly decent second quarter and a decent third quarter. We kept them at bay. We kept it within one, and then it slipped away and never to be reclaimed again.
It kind of like it was kind of like watching those halftime games with the kids, where they all just cluster around the ball and they don't know what they're doing.
No, it's not that. They don't cluster around the ball. They left their finishing shoes at home again.
They're afraid to touch it. I'm sorry.
I think they should probably just get online and order some new ones because it looks like they lost their old ones.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, if I had to pick a stat that kind of tells the story, it would actually have to be the number of blocked shots we have across our entire team for the game. That is 2. So basically, just about all of the saving came down to Wilkin, who played a good game. 70% is nothing to scoff at. But when no one's blocking anything, it kind of falls down to the goalie, and it makes their life that much more difficult.
Yeah, we saw that 2 weeks ago against Florida, where they had 0 blocked shots, and we saw the difference that made last week, or the previous week, where they had a whole bunch, and Florida only scored 7 instead of 10. Brandon, you can't mute yourself and then make a face like that.
One of our dogs just ripped it.
Freaking dog ripped booty. Oh, God.
He's been making that face for like 5 minutes. I was waiting for you to see it. Oh my God, I'm crying.
This is why they're not allowed in here when we're trying to record this stuff. Oh, my God.
Nothing like a dog fart.
That's basically Utica's season up until now, a dog fart.
I mean, both do know how to clear a room. She's dying, by the way.
I'm done.
I'm sure the dog was closer to her, that's why.
Shut up now.
So we were talking about blocks and the lack thereof. And apparently you could have used some kind of air blocking there. But this is what happens when you don't defend.
Yeah, I mean, in fairness, the defense, it's not like the defense didn't do anything. It's just they didn't block and have any actual shots blocked recorded. I mean, we obviously played good defense for at least some part of the game simply because they didn't run away with it until the fourth.
Second and third quarters.
Yeah. But, defense is only half of it.
All right, well, I guess my stat that tells the story kind of comes in chunks. Because it happened 3 times. And it's goalless stretches by Utica. They fall behind 3-0 because it takes them 17 minutes to get their first goal. Almost a third of the game is gone at that point. But you got to press. You're playing behind. The only reason we got those next couple is because Florida kind of sat back on defense and
Baltimore.
Baltimore sat back on defense and didn't press as high as they were. And Utica picked up the tempo. And then we got 3 goals in just over 10 minutes. Pretty good pace. From that point, we go another 15 minutes without a goal, which I'm not too upset about because Florida only got 1 goal over that stretch.
Baltimore.
I keep saying Florida because we've played them so much. Baltimore, the blast. They only got 1 goal during that period, so it was a good defensive set for both teams. But then after that goal, Utica was shut out the last 18 minutes. And it's just, you can't have a single stretch like that and expect to win in this league, let alone 3. Where in 50 minutes of the game, you score 1 goal. That's just, it's supposed to be a high-scoring indoor game. Let's see some of that high scoring. And we'll address some of the issues with that a bit later. That's where you see those dry periods. That tells the story for me.
Oh, that makes sense. I mean, when you've got that much time with pretty much nothing, I mean, that says a lot. When you can't capitalize on literally anything in that much time in this sort of setting, it's just very, very off-putting, very surprising, honestly. I actually have a bonus stat that tells the story if you'd like it.
Yeah, I'd love it.
Power plays.
Boy, those things keep coming back, don't they? Almost like they should really be worked on in practice until they get better.
Not even so much that. Looking at them as a whole for both teams. Baltimore, 3 power plays, 3 goals. Utica, 1 power play, no goal. Seems like the special teams on Baltimore know what they're doing.
They did today. Coming into that game, they were at 23%.
They're at 100% from that game.
I know. They figured it out. Utica had a 72% power kill. They had a 0%. So, yeah, it was a bad day on special teams.
Yes, unfortunately.
It was a red card.
It was a red card.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, you bring up practice, and I mean, I know that obviously the stuff that we've been consistently seeing at the games, that's clearly not, I would imagine that's not what they're practicing. It just seems like there's some sort of disconnect between practice and the games. I don't know necessarily what the cause of it is. I don't think anybody knows, but whatever it is, something's got to change.
Yeah. It was a rough one. I mean, when you think about it, obviously 2 of the goals were empty netters at the end of the game, and I had my suspicions for why they were so easy, and I'll talk about that in our next little bit here when we cover our play that changed the game. And the first goal, which was the power play for Baltimore, was a unlucky ricochet that came off the wall, and I don't know. It, by the rules, it probably should have set up a penalty kick instead of being allowed as a goal, because Vitali pulled his hands up in front of his face and it ricocheted off those, which puts them in an unnatural position and would immediately be called a handball, and play should have stopped.
Well, we already know those referees suck.
I was actually
I know
going to say something because you bring up Vitali and handball. I watched that man on the ground scoop a ball away, and it didn't get called.
Yeah, it was pretty bad.
Why are you getting closer?
My mouse disconnected, and I had to adjust the USB. I don't know. It was weird. Yeah, there was that blatant handball that we could see from the other end of the arena. I don't take issues with any of the blue cards that were awarded.
No, I think that they were all deserved, frankly. I mean, what we saw, I mean, it definitely matched up with the penalty that was given.
Yeah,
every time. Like that officiating was on point.
Everything else sucked.
Well, I mean, the game was just another unfortunate turn of events.
But yeah, they missed a couple handballs at both ends. Ultimately, it didn't help or hurt either team, but it's one of those things that I kind of bring up just because consistency has been an issue with officiating throughout the year.
Yeah.
Years. And much like the Utica team, you think, hey, maybe this is the week it gets better, and it never seems to.
This is fine. Everything is fine.
All right. So your moment that changed the game.
Pat Thompson getting injured.
Yep.
You stole mine.
I think we all were on the same page there. I don't think there's any... I'm fine with the 3 of us being on the same page there. That was absolutely terrifying, and honestly, I think shook everyone in that arena.
Mm-hmm.
So...
I mean, when Brandon could hear him scream from where we were sitting, and then you automatically see Vanzella screaming.
Which, to be clear, for those that don't already know, where it happened was essentially where they come into the arena. We are the exact opposite corner, and we heard him scream. That is a horrifying sound. One that I could have lived my whole life without hearing.
I give kudos to Vanzella for immediately stopping play, though.
Oh, yeah. Vanzella was like one of the first ones over there.
Yeah.
To check on. Yeah. And literally just yelling for them to get over there. So, props to Vanzella, but that's just being a good, I don't want to say, I almost said teammate, but that's
good
not
human.
That's just being a good sportsman and, being a fellow human being, giving a crap.
Yeah, I think if, that injury doesn't happen and with 5 minutes left, Utica puts on the 6th attacker, they still have a sense of urgency, and it's 6-4, and they aren't so sloppy, and I think it just kind of shook everyone. Because it is a reminder that, hey, you do play a dangerous sport, and all it takes is one play for things to get bad quickly.
I will say that, we did talk to him very briefly after the game.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, he was in good spirits and everything. Obviously he was at 72, so it's not like he went straight to the hospital or anything like that. And I know that he said he was going to be getting checked out there very soon.
The next day.
So, hopefully it ends up being, I don't want to say exaggerated. Hopefully it is hopefully it's not as bad as what it appeared to be, but I'm going to hope for the best and expect the worst.
Yeah. I mean, let's be clear for anyone that didn't watch the game or slow down the video to see what happened. Didn't catch which Baltimore player collided with him as he stretched his leg out, but his knee basically bent sideways at a very unnatural angle. Most likely an ACL, probably done for the season. It depends on how severe. But
regardless, we wish him a speedy recovery.
Yes, and hopefully he'll be able to get back on the turf in the future. If not this year, next year, or the year after, if he is still up for playing at that point.
Please come back. You were fun to watch.
But that'll wrap up that section. And we'll take a quick pause and then come back for our discussion of who fills that role now that Pat is likely done for the year. And here's that quick word from our one sponsor. And we are back. So as we discussed before the break, Pat Thompson likely done for the season. As things stood, he was tied for 5th in points per game. He'd played all 7 games. He had 3 goals and 1 assist. But he had one of the best shooting percentages at .300. He had a couple block shots. He was kind of there to fill in for the role that Liam played. Obviously not the same type of mercenary out there on the turf. That's a good word for Liam.
Yeah.
The bruiser.
Enforcer, the goon. But unfortunately, that makes it a significant offensive piece that Utica's losing. So I'm going to propose to you guys this question, which is who needs to step it up the most now that we've lost another piece?
I was going to say, at least you said who needs to step it up the most, because let's be honest, they all need to step it up.
The whole team.
We know this. Obviously, considering that Pat was one of our forwards, you have to basically, that kind of, to me, narrows it down to, Bo, Somo, Joey. Am I missing anybody? No.
Juan.
Well, I'm thinking about people who have been on the field and played often. And
Petrera.
I was going to say Ronaldinho. Well, if they played Tim, then I would say Tim.
Yeah.
We saw a lot of. I felt like we actually saw some really good play out of Somo this past weekend. I believe it was
Somo.
Yeah. I saw definitely some glimpses of again what he could do. We've seen it every game that he's been out there, just glimpses. But this time, I felt like he's really starting to come into it. He's starting to look good out there consistently. Honestly, if I had to pick one, And I don't know if it's going to make any bit of difference. I think that Joey needs to step it up more than any other forward that we have. I mean, every time that I see him out there, I'll give you an example. When we saw him in just warm-ups before the game, everybody else is warming up normally. It literally just looks like he's just going through the motions as he's warming up, which is disheartening to a fan to watch, even before the game. It just looks like you just don't care. And, I mean, we do see him try and make some plays happen, but we've seen so much more come out of him, especially in, in the first season. We saw so much come out of Joey, and it was exciting to watch him. And especially, I mean, he made a huge impression the black and white game.
When he jumped
the black and blue game.
The black and blue game. When he jumped up on the board, it was guzzling the beer.
Like, huge impression there.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, it just kind of tapered off. And this season, we just haven't seen much from him. And I really think if I had to pick one person that really needs to step it up on that forward line, it's going to be Joey. Now, who do they? If you're going to ask me, or I don't know if you're going to follow this up with who could potentially be, playing more consistently if Pat's out. I mean, we've actually seen a little bit coming out of Tim here, and I've always been a proponent of Tim. Could we potentially see him coming out more often? Possibly. He doesn't have the skill or the aggression of Pat, I don't believe. So at least not right now, but he could get there. That's a long-winded response, but that's my thoughts.
Yeah, I agree. Joey's certainly someone that can do to step up. For his career, he scored 1.7 goals per game, or 1.7 points per game. So he's always been an offensive threat. However, last year in the shortened season, which I think was partly due to usage and the fact that Florida signed Ian Bennett on loan, his stats dropped to 0.6 points per game. But he was still shooting at a .357 clip. This season, in one more game, he has 5 more shots on goal, 2 less goals, and 2 less assists. He's still at the 0.6 points per game, and his shot percentage is down to a .158. Which, as we mentioned in a previous podcast, the shot percentages are down across the board on this team.
I was going to say that's definitely nothing we didn't already kind of know across the board, frankly.
Michelle, do you have someone that you think needs to step it up?
I'm going with Quentin Swift.
Okay.
Interesting choice.
It's entertaining to watch. He's shown us what he can actually do.
To an extent.
To an extent. I mean, that ringer that he got off of Jake the other day was absolutely perfect.
It was pretty.
It was beautiful. I mean, he hasn't played in the MASL long. He's been here for what, 1 season? He played with Baltimore for 1 season?
Yeah, literally 1 game in Baltimore 2 years ago.
Yeah, and he before that was in the Revs Academy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's got some experience under his belt when it comes to soccer. Clearly, you've watched, he can handle the ball well, but I don't know, he's entertaining to watch, and I feel like he's got a lot more to give.
No, he definitely slots in well. He's a midfielder who, that's a position that now has a opening in the lines to see more time. He's looked better and better every game, kind of like you said about Somau.
Yeah, I might have that, and I apologize.
Yeah, I think it's Somau.
Yeah, it's he's certainly a candidate to see more playing time and show us more of what he can do and hopefully bring some of that energy. For me, there are 4 guys that I keyed on that hadn't played up to the back of their baseball card. We already talked about Joey. The other ones, one of them might surprise you. The other 2, not at all.
Okay.
Segura is down from 1.3 for his career to 0.7 points per game. Hopefully this last one was something that can get him going and we see a little bit more out of him.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But offensively, his shot percentage is down to a 1-1-1. So 1 for 9 when he takes a shot.
Which he was definitely one of our stronger ones for
The last.
Yeah.
Yeah, his 2 best seasons, it's been over 400. And one of those best seasons was with us 2 years ago. Unsurprisingly, I think this is the big acquisition in the offseason, the return of Slavica Uba-Peripovic, which I would put out a emergency pod saying this should be the piece that put Utica over the top, and boy, have I eaten crow on that.
Slav who?
0.048 shot percentage. Less than a 1 for 20 completion rate. 0.3 points per game. I obviously going to San Diego with all their pieces, we expected the drop off that he saw in points, but I don't think we saw this kind of deterioration coming so quickly. And I have to wonder if, I know a lot of the guys in this league are older, but how much age plays a role in that. He will be 35 at the end of the season. Which an athlete is pretty far up there.
Yep.
Young in life, but old for sports. We mentioned Joey. He is going to be 33 over the summer. So, that's on that other side of peak for most athletes.
Holy cow, I'm older than Joey.
Younger than Slav.
The youngest one out of those that I think is underperforming and has actually been our best performer to this point on the year, and I think part of his underperformance is because the team around him isn't doing so well. That's Moises Gonzalez. He will be 30 here in just over a month and a half. So right in that peak window for an athlete. However, for his career, he's a 1.7 point per game guy. This year it's down to 1.1. Like I said, I think part of that is due to the rest of the team struggling around him, but maybe it's time that he kind of grabs this by the reins and takes control and leads the way.
Might be time.
Thinking about it a little bit, I mean, he definitely came out of the gate. Like when he came, when he came out, came back to playing in our, I believe it was like second game this season.
Yeah.
He came out swinging. Like he was a breath of fresh air compared to the rest of them because we haven't seen the upswing of Utica yet.
Yeah.
We've only seen kind of just this
Crash and burn.
Slog.
Yeah. And when he came out, I mean, he was a breath of fresh air for that game. And I'm like, and of course, then it brings hope for moving forward. But then he kind of came, instead of them coming up to his level, he kind of went down towards them or somewhere in between where he came in for the season and where they are, where everybody else feels like they are, trudging through the mud. Actually, I thought of one more.
Okay.
But I was waiting to see what 2 years were. And somebody who has begun to come back, begun to step it up, but still is nothing compared to what we've seen him in the past. You might not like this one. but it's Obasi. And Huber's not going to like me for that one either. But he has the footwork. You know, we see him. We've been seeing him. You know, as we put it, breaking ankles just about every game.
Oh.
But he has no sense of urgency. And I say that because, like, the past couple games, he's walked the ball up the field. Which, okay, when you're ahead, that makes sense. Burning the clock. When you're behind, there was so many times, especially in this past game, where it was just like, let's get a sense of urgency, guys. Let's do something. And a lot of the time, the ball was on his foot.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like a sense of urgency is lacking across the board, but especially in Obasi.
So I will play devil's advocate here just a tiny bit. And I think the reason why he's given the ball to bring it forward so often is because he's one of the best dribblers on the team.
Agreed.
And especially in those, there are times where it clearly is no sense of urgency. This team is just kind of swinging the ball around and hoping to find a hole and not really moving too much off the ball. But I think that keeper rule is playing a role here. Because you can't, pass it back to the keeper. So they have to leave it at the feet of one of their best one-on-one guys so that you can get those line shifts. And I hate it. And it's another reason that when this rule was announced, I tried to not be all negative about it. But the more I see it in action, the less I like it.
Yeah, it definitely, compared to the teams that we've played, it does feel like it's impacted us more because we've gotten caught with it more than any other team that in any of the games we've played, the opposite team has always,
had less.
Played around it, except for maybe like once. But we've gotten called with it probably, I would say, every other game on average. And that of course, hurts us pretty bad.
Yeah. But Michelle, I do agree with you that this opens up a chance for some of the younger guys. And I'm not at the point where I'm going to say, let's throw the season away and just get those guys as much playing time as possible to get them ready for next year. But Q, I expect to see more playing time with Thompson gone, and he looked pretty good in his past couple games. Brandon, like we talked about at the game, Somau, his body control has gotten a lot better. He's one of the faster guys that can push the pace on offense. I have no idea if we'll see Whitman Hernandez, who's still on the inactive list. Yep. The guy from OCC who had all kinds of scoring records there, and we were very excited about before last year was canceled.
Well, what about the other four that we haven't seen in a few games, like Ronaldinho and
Ronnie? We've seen a couple times.
I think the last time he played was Harrisburg.
Yeah, I think that might just be because they've been healthier, so they've been playing the more experienced veterans who haven't been able to get it done.
Okay, we haven't seen Juan since they signed him. We haven't seen Junior, and what happened to Rafa?
I'm pretty sure those guys, unfortunately, are just those depth signings, where if injuries or visa issues or can't travel for some reason pops up, we'll see them. But I don't know. Like, I'd love to see more Ronnie. He's looked good out there when he's gotten a chance to play. But yeah, he hasn't played in the last 3.
Yep.
Timmy's only played in 3 games, but Junior, Junior could be the guy that comes back and fills that roster spot or the game day roster spot for Thompson. He's the few games that we've had him out there between 2 years ago, he looked pretty good.
Agreed.
And I know we kind of ragged on the team for defense. Can we just mention that there's one player on this team that has double-digit blocked shots at this point, which is twice as many as anyone else? Do you guys guess who?
Tally.
Well,
It's not
hold on,
Vitali.
I'm looking it up. Hold on.
She's cheating.
Vitali's in second with 5.
Voices.
I was going to say it's literally Raymond.
Raymond.
Since you had to look it up and still got it wrong.
Yeah. Ben Raymond has been big this year for block shots.
Oh, I was looking at the shots blocked.
How many shots got blocked versus how many shots they had
Shut
blocked?
up.
It's okay. Okay.
I just want
With Toby gone, due to those visa issues, Ben's really kind of come into his own on that back line.
And then we just need everyone else to come into their own.
Yeah, since Jake's blocked 4.
Yeah.
No, I meant.
I know, I'm just saying Jake, Mr. Earthquake Jake is blocked.
But he's also excelled in other areas. Like he was like my one to talk about for a few games, and
Yeah, just never let Jake be the guy that's going one-on-one to get back on a counterattack.
yeah, let's not do that.
Because
Although he'll try. He'll try.
he'll try.
Logan.
He does try his darndest, but that's when he gets beat and goals are given up. All right, quick pause here, then we'll go ahead and do our Milwaukee predictions and preview. And once again, we are back. So, Friday night, Utica goes on the road for the Lager Derby, taking on Milwaukee at 7:35 Eastern. We haven't seen these guys since they shellacked us to end our unbeaten streak to start the year 3 years ago. And teams are quite different. Let's see. What do we know about Milwaukee this year besides Matt Perella is now their starting goalkeeper?
Yeah, and he's going to come in with a chip on his shoulder.
Yeah, he's
Mhm.
angry.
So
But I mean,
shove the ball down his throat, please.
he does allow 6, almost 7 goals.
He has a 6.63 save percentage with allowing 6.85 goals per game, which is actually worse than Brian Wilkin.
Yeah, I saw that. He's only got 4 or something. 4.85.
Unsurprisingly, offensively, the Wave are led by Ian Bennett, whose 15 goals and 4 assists are right on par for what he's done for his career.
Yep.
They have Marcio Leite leading the way out of the back. Gordy Gerson joined the team in the offseason. Derek Huffman has rejoined them after his 2-game suspension. They're starting to get together. However, they are kind of like Harrisburg in the fact that they have a bunch of veteran guys and then a bunch of guys that are completely new or very new to the indoor or relatively new to the indoor game this season.
Yeah, and their record is basically almost exactly like ours, except they've played 1 less game.
Yeah.
And their goal differential we'd have to beat them by quite a bit to dig ourselves.
They've scored much more than us.
Yeah.
I think Ian has scored more than most of our players combined.
If anyone wants to turn into that kind of player for us, that would help.
Yes, please. Yes, have some.
Why get on that?
So let's talk special teams because we mentioned this has been very bad for us.
Why do you like to torture me?
But here's the thing. If we don't screw up as badly as we did in this last game, this could be a chance for us to start writing the ship on special teams. Because
find a piece of wood and knock on it like right now after saying such things. There
Is
you
that
go.
loud enough? Okay.
Drink your alcohol. Just drink your booze. You'll be fine.
So I say that because although Utica is god awful with a 3 for 10 power play conversion rate,
No better way to describe it.
God awful.
God. No, you have to have the pause. God awful.
emphasis. Sorry, emphasis. It's got to be on the wrong syllable.
God.
Milwaukee's the exact opposite, which will be a good chance to test our penalty kill if that occasion arises. They're 8 for 11 on their power plays. Again, that's where it helps to have someone like Ian Bennett. Even if he's not the one scoring, he's drawing defense's attention. However, their penalty kill has been almost as bad as our chances on power plays.
All right.
Yep.
Yep.
They have a 3.57 penalty kill rate. Even after Utica's terrible performance against Baltimore, which one of them was a shootout, one of them was an unlucky bounce off of a tally.
Yep.
We still have a 5.71 penalty kill. So like I said, it'll be a good chance to see how our penalty kill does. Because anytime you send out Raymond, Obasi, Logan, Vitale, and Schindler, any combination of those 5, just to be 4 defensive guys back there, you've got a pretty good chance.
Yeah, it's definitely, I mean, we've got a good squad. It's just a matter of, everybody working together, doing their roles, remembering what you practiced, and just getting out there and playing the best you can. I mean, we can definitely. I'm hopeful for this game, and I say that because it could be a good morale boost after the trouncings that we have taken. Not to say that Milwaukee's a pushover, because they're not at all.
No.
Again, their record is just about where ours is, but they've got more goals. They've got many more goals than us.
These are 2 teams that have the veteran leadership that, if not a championship expectation going into the season, you were expecting playoffs or bust.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And where Utica is 2-5, Milwaukee is 1-5-1 because of their overtime loss to Baltimore.
Right.
So it's a chance for Utica to put Milwaukee further behind them in the standings and to try to catch up with those in front of them, like Tacoma, who's the closest. Ontario's also only a single game out ahead of us. And we'll talk about Ontario later.
Yeah, this game is definitely going to be a fight. I think this one is going to be, I don't want to say a war of attrition, because it's not really what I'm thinking of, but it's if we're as, I would say, evenly matched, just again, based on paper, based on how they've performed against teams we've played, I think that this is one of our best chances to get another win on the board. And again, it would be a good morale boost for the team, to finally come off of a win going into Sunday. But it's not going to come easy, and they need to work for it.
That they're going to. Our friend, the FC Fanatic, will be there in Milwaukee for the game. Lucky him. If you're not a member of in the group or in the box group on Facebook,
Doing good.
I am fantastic with words, that I am. Now I lost my train of thought. In the box group, yeah, join it. It's just a lot of fans talking sport, and they do a show normally every Thursday night. It's hosted by the FC Fanatic and his friend who's hosting him for this game, Adam Granatella, hardcore Milwaukee fan. Great show. It will not be this Thursday. They will be going live Friday together from Adam's place to do a show before the game.
That makes a lot more sense considering they'll be in the same physical location.
Yeah, that does help sometimes.
Sometimes.
Did you just say that help?
No, it can help sometimes. I don't know. It should be a hard-fought game. Both teams have something to prove. They should come in with chips on their shoulders. Ultimately, what do you think it takes for Utica to win this?
Goals.
Well, I mean, do you want to go into more detail? If Utica gets goals, they will win.
Ball go in goal, we win. Yay.
What happens if they get more goals?
You're going to go in depth, or is that?
No, I'm. That's all I got. No, goals.
Okay, I'm going to quote an NFL coach here. Do your job.
Yeah, I agree. That is something that Utica has not done this year. In every,
defense needs to defense. Offense needs to offense. All needs to go in the goal. And Andrew or Brian, whoever's going to be in the goal, needs to brick wall the ball.
Or stretch the goal.
Or stretch the ball.
Yeah.
No, not stretch the ball.
Stretch across the goal face.
Yeah.
Turn into a flying squirrel.
I'm not going to say they need to shut down Ian Bennett because that's a tall task for anyone.
They need to shut down Ian Bennett.
They need to contain Ian Bennett.
There you go.
They can't let him do what who was it? Pereira just did against them on Sunday.
They can't let Ian Bennett do Ian Bennett things.
They can't let him have a first quarter hat trick.
Yeah,
Don't do that.
You can't let him have a hat trick. If you can keep him under his season average at 2 points, whether it's 2 goals or a goal and an assist, or, the only other way left with 2 assists, if you can contain him because he's such a central point of their offense, you stand a chance at winning that game, even if it is a low-scoring slugfest.
Also shove the ball down Perella's throat.
Yeah, I mean, if we could do that against anyone.
That'd be great.
Yeah, that would be nice. It doesn't matter if it's Perella or not, but...
If their goalkeeper doesn't have another 800 save percentage like the past few games...
Well, that's because they're kicking it right to him! Stop heading for the bread box!
Are you trying to say we need more Vitali lasers?
Absolutely!
Yes!
Vitali, Quentin, Logan.
Vitali literally took one out of Christian's handbook there and just
Chipped it.
And it was gorgeous.
Which we'll mention that is one of the 4 available as a potential goal of the week. So if you haven't, go to the Facebook or Twitter or Instagram and click on the link from the MASL and go vote for Vitali.
I was actually just waiting. I was going to elaborate on my goals.
Yeah, go.
As I've said, week in and week out, finishing shoes. I hear they have some great a great selection on Amazon. Go get some, please. We've seen every once in a while where, there's some people in the right place at the right time. We've seen breakaways. We've seen the ability to finish attacks and, as Michelle said, do your job. But we need our finishing shoes. We need to get that sense of urgency. We need to get that aggression back. It's got to happen. We need it, because otherwise, I mean, yeah, sure, you can defend all day, but and you can't even. I mean, we're still struggling in that department, but we're getting better. I mean, defense is only half the equation. We need the offense to capitalize. We need them to make opportunities. Stop passing around the outside constantly, especially on power plays. You got to risk it and put it in the middle and make the defense collapse so that you can actually pass it back out and get those shots. Like,
The offense actually needs to be aggressive.
the offense needs to be aggressive. We know they have that capability. We need to see it badly.
Kind of like that line from Dodgeball, where Patches O'Houlihan is talking to what's his name, Gordon. He's like, "You gotta get mean, you gotta get angry."
Yes.
We need to see that out of the offense.
I'm really getting ready to tell them, if you could dodge a wrench, you could dodge a ball.
We don't want them to dodge anything.
So that will bring us to our predictions. How do you guys think Friday night's game goes?
Grab your alcohol.
No. I don't need it for this one.
I'm saying 7-5 us.
Higher than I would have expected. I'm going with what I did last week. I said 5-4 us. I'm still going 5-4 us. Not overtime. Just straight 5-4.
All right. Well, if it's high scoring, and I guess by high scoring I mean like league average, where we see 10 to 12 total goals, I don't know if Utica can keep up offensively. But if they execute defensively and they lock down Ian Bennett and just keep him from having an Ian Bennett type of game, which is, I know, hard to do, and they keep this at like a 7, 8, 9 goal game, they're uncommon. They do happen. They're more common now with the goalie rule. I won't speculate as to why.
Is there a prediction here?
There is. And that is, I expect the defense to continue to improve as it has and further embrace that hard-nosed physicality that comes from being led off the bench by Ryan Hall, and to limit the offensive opportunities for Milwaukee. I think we see a 5-3 win for Utica.
There we go. Sorry, I was trying to poke and prod for the number there, Just had to grab a fork and just try and poke him through the camera so I could actually get the number out of him. Good golly, man.
I'm sure he saw you, but he looked away.
I'm not going to fork this up.
Maybe that's something Utica should say to themselves on Friday night.
Forky can be their mascot.
Forky.
Great, now Disney's going to come after us just because you mentioned it.
That's the question.
Aw. I'm sure you've seen the Forky meme after, like, the Cowboys lost and the Patriots lost.
Oh.
And it was just the logo of that team slapped on there, and it was, "You're just like me. Trash." And I'm like, oh, man. I don't want to see that coming around from MASL
There's
memes.
the next Wallpaper Wednesday.
No.
There was, sorry to get off track, I was watching it one day, and Forky goes, "What is air?"
What is air? Well, there are these little tiny things called atoms, and I don't mean that guy Adam Granatella. Like, there's not a bunch of him floating around in space. But,
There could be. You don't know.
Michelle, I think we'll just find a YouTube video and we'll send you that later, and you can explain it. I don't feel like playing physics teacher here.
Brandon has the fork again.
Hey, let's keep the violence to a minimum. Nothing that takes her to the hospital.
Pork.
All right. So at this point, let's agree to part ways. There will be an Ontario preview coming. It might end up being a separate episode depending on when this person gets back to me. And I won't say who they are out loud yet. I teased it on Twitter earlier. Do not eat your microphone. Do not perform that to your microphone. But if you guys want to just throw in your predictions for that here.
9-4 them.
I forgot. Oh.
Yeah, what was mine? 12-5 them.
Yeah.
Yeah, you went all in.
It's Ontario, dude.
It's King Tayou.
It is King Tayou. I believe that when I sent it to you, I said 7-4 them. But yeah, I wasn't 100% sure. So yeah. I'm still sticking with that. Like, that doesn't really change. I still think it's going to be a 7-4 game in their favor. Unless we do depending on how they look Friday. Maybe that could change. But right now, that is my thought, and I'm sticking to it.
All right. Well, I'm going to be a little tease and save my prediction for that other section with the mystery guest.
You son of a gun.
I don't want to spoil everything yet. But yeah, I'm hopefully recording that later tonight. And if I do, it'll be added in here after this, and I'll just cut out the part where I say I'm recording it later tonight.
Hopefully.
Possibly.
If not, it'll be an extra episode, or worst case scenario, I'll just get on the mic in the morning and do a rambling preview by myself.
All by yourself.
So Ontario, they're the Fury. It's in California, not Canada. They have the King, and it's not LeBron James. I know it's confusing because they both play in California.
For the longest time, I actually thought Ontario played in Canada.
I was very confused the first year in the league when I saw Ontario was in the West, and I'm like, no, it's not.
We also only knew of the one Ontario, so we did not realize that there was another one out in California.
Yeah, that's because you have the Beast Coast, and then you have the Worst Coast. And
wow, way to be coastists.
Uh-huh.
Oof.
I'm a coastal elite in the fact that I think my coast is the elite coast, not in the fact that I'm an elite living on the coast.
I'm done.
I'm leaving.
Bye.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us. If there's more, there'll be more. If not, then we'll catch you on the next episode. Thanks for listening. Hey, everyone. Matt here. Before we get into this next segment, I just want to go ahead and give you the heads up that there were some technical issues in the internet that caused some audio problems that can't be fixed on my end or on the guest's end due to hotel Wi-Fi being what it is. That being said, this next bit is a fantastic interview with a wonderful guest who we hope to have back on in the future, hopefully when both podcasts can be here in full numbers. So enjoy, and thanks for listening. And we are back. I know as I trailed off to end our earlier segment, I said I wasn't sure if we would be back with this section or if it would be a full episode, but we're able to get a late night recording session in, and I will let my guest introduce himself because, frankly, I love the energy he brings when he introduces his team on his podcast. Philly, take it away.
What's going on, everybody? Thanks for having me on the show. Very excited to be here. We've been long overdue on trying to make this happen. Obviously, having a 3-hour delay in terms of time zones and stuff like that is kind of been a little brutal in both our schedules. But I'm happy to be here, and our two respective clubs, your Utica City FC and my Ontario Fury, are about to duke it out for the first time ever in a couple of days. So we got a lot to talk about.
Yes, we do. I know when Utica joined the league a few years ago and we saw Ontario in the West, I joked about this with Brandon and Michelle earlier, we were confused because living in very rural New York, we'd never heard of Ontario, California. So we were thinking Ontario, Canada.
And that's a fair assumption because there was a USL team called the Ottawa Fury that used to exist back in the day. And sadly, if you look at Major League Soccer's reporting on that of an Adrian Perez, a former indoor soccer player who was a member of LAFC, now a member of DC United, they tie him to the Ottawa Fury of the Major Arena Soccer League. So I get that it could be a little confusing. And here's a funny story for you. So I, too, I'm from the Empire State. And when I moved out with my wife in January of 2016, the day I was supposed to leave, I think New York City got smacked with, I don't know, maybe the 6th or 7th worst winter storm on record at that time. So I wasn't able to catch any flights to L.A., which was frustrating to me. And I swear my parents have the longest driveway in Queens. It's ridiculous. So I'm out shoveling snow instead of hanging out in Santa Monica. But long story short, after having a conversation with Delta, they're trying to route me through Alabama, trying to route me through here, trying to route me through there. They finally were like, well, sir, we can route you to Ontario, and that should be able to get you on your way. At this point, I'm like, why am I going to go to Canada to get to Los Angeles? Stop giving me the runaround. And then she was the first person to tell me, there's actually an Ontario in California, sir. It's about 42 miles from LAX. And I said, oh. I just learned something new. I apologize for being rude. So that's the deal there.
Yeah, well, in regards to the game, it should be hopefully a good matchup. There are teams going, I'd say, into the season with the same goal of winning the Ron Newman Cup. Both teams have dealt with playing the top team in their division quite a bit early in the season, and I think that's hurt the point total for both of us. Why don't you go ahead and talk a little bit about what your team brings to the table with their players?
Look, the Fury are a relatively new team. Obviously, they don't have much of a history. They've really been around since the inception of the Major Arena Soccer League. And so last year was their best season in terms of franchise history. They made it to the Ron Newman Cup final, in which they lost in the mini game to the San Diego Sockers. The Sockers were the underdog in that matchup, without a doubt. The Ontario Fury were the team to beat. It was only the Florida Tropics that really had a better record than the Ontario Fury did last season. So for us to lose in the minigame to San Diego, kind of was gut-wrenching, especially considering the fact that it was on our home turf in Toyota Arena. I will argue this with anybody. In fact, I come to this United Soccer Coaches Convention here in Kansas City. I happened to catch a ride. The general manager of the San Diego Sockers found me at the airport. And that's Sean Bowers. He was kind enough to give me a ride over here, and that was fun. I mean, Sean Bowers, great guy, former Kansas City Wizards defender and captain and an indoor soccer player. And we chatted about it. Had Clayson DeLima not gone down with that concussion, might have been a different story. Nevertheless, that was the end of that season. So the Fury, over the course of the offseason, marketed themselves with a hashtag championship-bound statement. It's something that was believed from the top of the food chain, from the owner, Jeff Burnham, all the way down to the mascot, Striker, the funny-looking mountain lion. He's not funny-looking. He's actually kind of cool. I love him. And so the team still believes that they are poised to make history. Unfortunately, they did run into a San Diego buzzsaw. And what we lovingly like to call on the broadcast the I-15 collision, it was the Fury that crashed into a blue and yellow brick wall this past weekend. But nonetheless, there is no losing if you learn. And so our team is certainly looking for a rebound. They happen to beat Chihuahua. They beat Florida. on their own home turf. They beat San Diego on their own home turf. They just, you win some, you lose some. And going into this weekend, they're playing the Blast and Utica City. So I know head coach Jimmy Nordberg has got the troops rallied. They've got so many outstanding players on there, which I'm sure we're going to cover in a moment. But that's sort of a little background on what the Fury was last season and what they are this season. And despite being only 3-3, still firmly believe that #championship bound is the intention of this season.
Yeah, I think Utica kind of has the same mentality, even with their players, even though it's been a slow start at 2-5. Even before the Baltimore loss this past Sunday, you saw a bunch of them on social media with, today's the day we turn it around. We get back to being who we are. Unfortunately, that didn't happen, but I think that's what comes with the veteran leadership on any team, is you always believe you can dig yourself out of the hole.
And that's what a championship team's made out of. I mean, you don't learn from winning all the time. You learn from losing. And we shall see. I happen to do a little bit of work with the Major Arena Soccer League, like doing a little show called Insider. And I happened to interview Tommy Tanner. And Tommy's pretty convinced that the team's going to do big things this year. And look, it's still early on in the season. I think the fact that there were a lot of players that they hadn't played together in quite a while certainly impacts things. You had a couple of the other guys. You had guys like Schindler, for example, that weren't part of the team. They went down to Florida. So, they benefited. But, look, it's a matter of time before things kick up. And Utica City, I love what you guys do. The atmosphere is great attendance-wise. You guys are tops in the league. Your broadcast is great. And it's only a matter of time before the team turns it around on the field. But I certainly don't hope that it's against my Ontario Fury.
Well, as fans, we're hoping that it starts with the game this Friday against Milwaukee, but we've covered that in an earlier segment. Let's start talking about your team, starting in the back with Chris Toth as your goalkeeper. If I remember correctly, he left a couple years ago and then has come back.
Yeah, so Chris Toth is the son of the legendary Zoltan Toth, who San Diego soccer star has got his name up in the rafters. So Chris did spend a little bit of time with he was on the Fury where it was the 2019-2020 season. I don't know, with COVID, my time period might be off, but he was voted MASL Keeper of the Year while he was on the Ontario Fury. And then he ended up taking a plane ride up north to hang out in Tacoma with his good buddy Danny Waltman. And so it was him and Danny that were basically a platoon, if you will, of goalkeepers for Tacoma. And then during the offseason, the Fury signed him back. So we're happy to have him back. And he's been a great mentor to another keeper who the Fury had. Last season, Clayson DeLima, breakout year. He was voted MASL Goalkeeper of the Year. And I mean, other than the last 2 minutes of the mini game, Clayson played every single minute of last season, and he really had an outstanding time. So I know it's obviously a stiff competition between him and Chris Toth, but between those two keepers, I would say we've got two of the brightest keepers within the league.
Yeah, I'm just looking at their stats here. Toth is allowing just over 5 goals a game. DeLima a little bit more at 6.5 so far, but they both have save percentages over 600, so it's hard to go wrong with no matter who you guys put in goal.
For sure. And look, our back line, which we're obviously going to discuss, it suffered to a certain extent. I mean, we have Maicon de Abreu, who's an outstanding player last season. He's still stuck in Brazil on what we like to lovingly call his extended honeymoon. Obviously, there's visa issues in terms of like that, but Maicon de Abreu not being a part of our back line is a big deal because, I mean, he's an all MASL talent, fantastic player. But we have seen some bright spots in that of Johnny Topete. Johnny Topete is a player who's a veteran of the league, played with the Sockers. He's been with the Fury for a little while. Man slimmed down in a fighting shape, so he's looking really good, and he's had a really good season thus far. We have Thiago Gonçalves, who is our leader in assists. He didn't play the last game against the Sockers. He's another outstanding talent. And we've got – look, I'm not obviously going to say we're perfect by any stretch of the imagination as far as our backline is concerned because we're 3-3. But there are some key omissions that we've had over the course of the past couple of games, which has led to our playing 500 ball over the course of the past couple of weeks.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing you see around the league everywhere with those visa issues tying up players that were depended on in seasons past and were planned on being anchors. It's an unfortunate situation, and obviously we keep hoping every team can get it straightened out. But at this point in the season, I think everyone's starting to move on without them and at least figure out those positions and how they're filling them. Speaking of your back line, you have quite the lineup just in defenders, like you mentioned, Thiago Gonzalez, Berto Palmer. You have, who am I forgetting? Oh, the former LA Galaxy man himself, Israel Sassé. And then, of course, Uzi Tayou, who followed his brother came with Frank to the team a few years ago. I mean, what a phenomenal back line. It's one of the best in the league. And as we saw, I think it was in your game a couple weeks ago with Palmer getting ahead and getting a couple assists and opening things up from the back.
Not to mention scoring a goal against San Diego. So obviously Berto, the reigning defender of the year. Of course I was going to mention him. I was waiting for you to do it. Berto's an outstanding talent. Obviously he was a former Kansas City Comet. I'm in his neck of the woods going to attend his former team play Tacoma on Saturday. I mean, Berto's a fantastic player. Uzi Tayou, it's the last man I would ever want to run into on my way towards anything, whether it be towards goal or anywhere. He is an imposing figure. People want to talk about how big and strong and chiseled Frank is. They need to look at his older brother. Uzi's a much bigger Tayou than Frank is. And Israel Sassé, a veteran of this league and a veteran of this team. He literally has been part of the Ontario Fury since day one. Fun story, a 17-year-old Israel Sassé, upon graduating high school, he went to one of those prestigious sports academies down in Florida. He actually was classmates with Maria Sharapova, just as a side note. But Izzy, a couple of weeks after graduating high school and going to prom, comes up to the LA Galaxy and happens to share a locker next to the legendary David Beckham. So Izzy's a solid player, again, a veteran of this league, a veteran of this team. And, I mean, between those guys, yes, it's a formidable back line, but a back line that still could improve. Because obviously we're giving up goals. The last match against the Sockers, we gave up 7, only scored 2. But we've only played 6 matches. It's a 24-game season. Still plenty of time to improve.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've mentioned on our end that, Utica's starting to get its legs defensively. If you ignore the open net goals, there was only 6 goals this last game, which is an improvement from their past 2. An improvement from any of the games they've played against the Blast or Florida this season. Then we move on to your guys' midfield, and you signed Justin Stinson away from St. Louis a couple of years ago. He's now the second leading scorer on your team. You have Jesus Pacheco, Jorge De Leon, Frankie Gonzalez, Nestor Hernandez. Or no, I'm looking at the forward there. Hernandez. Maguire, again, another solid core of players that can cycle through on their lines.
Yeah, that's really where we start to improve. I'm going to save Justin for last because I have a lot to say about Justin in a positive way. Emmanuel Aguirre is a player who actually came up through the Liga MX academies. Former San Diego Soccer. They signed him to a 3-year deal back a couple of years ago, but then pandemic hit, ish hit the fan, for lack of a better term, and we ended up picking him up. We're still waiting for him to shine, but Emmanuel Aguirre is certainly a talent. Willie Spur is another player. That's a really good pickup. We grabbed him from the Tacoma Stars last season. Last year was his rookie season with Tacoma. He came on later on, but he's been a fantastic addition. Nestor Hernandez, a league veteran, obviously a member of of Dallas, played in St. Louis. As far as our Stryking Fury podcast is concerned, our interview, our best downloaded episode, because he clearly has a lot of fans, and he made a big impact on everybody down in Dallas. Jesus Pacheco, young Jesus Pacheco, is having the breakout year that I would have anticipated for him to have. He started every match this season. He's among the top 3 in terms of points. He's having a killer year. George De Leon, one of the nicest people I've ever met in my life. Former Mesquite Outlaw, played under Tayou, obviously the legendary Tayou. George De Leon brings a lot of firepower to this team. He was the only goal scorer for the Fury in the previous matchup against the Sockers. Obviously, we know the other goal was scored by it was an own goal. I mean, George De Leon, a nice welcomed addition. He's certainly embraced the LA lifestyle. Big Rams fan. I've got a couple of games with him. We love George De Leon here. And, of course, you got who I like to call Justin the Stinger Stinson, a kid from St. Charles, Missouri. Obviously, you figure he'd stick around his hometown ambush. But out in Ontario, he's taking care of business. And if you look at his history, when he was a kid, he spent a little bit of time with – we're going to England right now, the EPL, the West Ham Youth Academy. And we know if there's anything that West Ham does, it's the Academy of Football. They produce so many outstanding players, the Rio Ferdinands, the Frank Lampards. So not saying that he trained with those guys, but Stinson, in my opinion, one of the, if not the best midfielders in the Major Arena Soccer League. When you watch him in the midfield, it looks like the ball is glued to his foot. He has impeccable footwork, great moves, and potentially also one of the best 1v1 players in the game.
Yeah, he had that breakout season a couple of years ago, and then you guys were able to steal him away, and it was just a power shift there. Great signing on your part. And then, of course, we get to the man up top.
We like him.
Then, of course, we get to the man up top, who's chasing 400 career points, the king, Frank Tayou. What can you say about him that hasn't been said already?
I mean, look, he's a king for multiple reasons. One, because of obviously his lineage in terms of his family back in Cameroon. But you said it. He's 1 point shy of 400. Potentially, he's going to surpass Leo Gibson. Hopefully on Friday. Frank. He had a 70-goal season a couple of years ago with Sonora. I mean, Frank is arguably one of the most dominant players in indoor soccer. Period. Now, San Diego has done a really good job shutting him down. So people understand how and what Frank is going to do. They know the king is going to, like I like to say, wield his mighty scepter. But even with a lot of people coming and crashing down on Frank, he has options in the midfield, and a couple of options that we mentioned. Justin Stinson, the second leading scorer on our team. So him getting shut down by some of the other teams has benefited some of the other players, which is fine. But we know it's only a matter of time before Frank decides to flip that switch, get angry, and do things. I mean, we saw how he lit up the Florida Tropics like a pinball machine. I mean, Frank in the first, 4 games of the season, no, I guess 3. I mean, he was averaging a hat trick a game, which is, Frank Tayou-esque. Obviously, the last couple of games, he hasn't been much of a factor, but he's always going to command attention regardless. What he needs to do is stay the heck out of foul trouble. Because while he can score, frankly, we get in trouble with him. He starts collecting those fouls. It takes his aggression out of the game. I don't want to say it takes his mind out of the game, but he's an outstanding player and also a great human being and an amazing philanthropist within his own right.
Yeah, looking forward to meeting him. Won't happen this weekend, unfortunately, but when I'm as close to the turf as I can be, I'm going to try to meet as many players as I can in a couple weeks, since these teams turn around and play again, 8 days later, 9 days later?
Yeah. It's a very, very quick turnaround. I think we play you guys like on a Tuesday or a Wednesday the following week. So I know the Fury got Baltimore. They've got Utica. Then they turn around on the 26th. They play San Diego, and then I think then that's when we get together to tango once again.
Yeah, Utica's got a similar stretch. We got Milwaukee Friday, you guys on Sunday, then fly to the West Coast, and I believe it's Sunday to play against San Diego, and then Ontario on Tuesday.
That's right. Yeah, it'll be fun. Certainly looking forward to it. Again, having had the conversations with Tommy Tanner, very fascinated with what he's done within his own career, obviously with Syracuse, with that of Utica City. And yeah, I mean, it's very much looking forward to the matchup. I know that we get to see Mr. Raymond again. We saw him when he was a member of San Diego. Yeah, it'll be a good matchup. Certainly one in which we've been long expecting. My co-host and my podcast partner for my LAFC show, his family happens to be from Utica. So he's bringing everybody from, and his immediate family, they all live in Southern California. So he's bringing a small little local Utica City FC contingent.
Wonderful.
So you're not going to be the only fan supporting Utica that day. I'll tell you that much.
Well, I know the FC Fanatic will also be in the arena that day, so we'll have a few loud voices there. But as we turn our attention to the game, what would you say are going to be the deciding factors for who can come out on top?
Well, I mean, it all starts up top, as you mentioned. If Frank can end the scoring drought and he can turn it on and get back to scoring 3 goals, dish out an assist, I would say Ontario has the edge in that sense. I also know for a fact that they're going to be fighting with a bigger chip on their shoulder, having gotten smacked by their rivals, San Diego 7-2. Jimmy Nordberg, certainly not one to just lay down and give up on anything. Certainly laid into his team, and he's going to have them fired up. But a lot of it also is contingent upon how the game against Baltimore goes. Will Baltimore wear out Ontario? That would be the question. So, yeah, that's going to be an interesting situation. We really have to scout how Ontario plays against the blasted Secu Arena to really judge how they're going to come out and perform against Utica. If it's a tough, grinder of a match in which, we go into overtime, both teams exhausted and beat up, we'll see what happens. If the Fury happen to walk all over Baltimore, then their bigger guns happen to get a rest and then maybe come out on a short trip from Baltimore to Utica and take care of business. But bottom line is this: both our teams desperately seeking a win and turn around their season. And not that the season is lost on either end, but I mean it's going to be a grudge match one way or another. This isn't a light match, nor is Ontario, nor obviously would Utica be looking at this as a something we bypassed. Oh, this is a cupcake opponent. No way. They're going in as if this is going to be the MASL final because they need to maintain that attitude. As does your team because, well, the season needs to turn around as soon as possible for both our respective clubs.
Yeah, and I will say this regarding the Baltimore game you guys have on Friday. You saw it in the stretches for when Utica was competing with them, and you saw it in their game, in Baltimore's game last Friday night against Dallas. Is they can be out-physicaled. It's the one disadvantage I would say they have at this moment because they're still very solid in the back with Van Zella. They still have a lot of scoring potential between Ferdinand and Mello and Santo, tons of weapons there. But if you get physical with them, and from what we saw with Ontario playing Florida, you guys can be a very physical team. You can make them uncomfortable. Yeah. You can make them uncomfortable, and then they're just off their game at that point.
Just a matter, again, like on how many whistles we start to get. I think early on in the match against San Diego, you had Frank, Uzi, and Stinson that were in foul trouble early on in the game, and that certainly took away from their attack and their aggressiveness. So while they can be physical, the thing that they need to be careful about is getting in foul trouble.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for those listeners that don't know, it is 4 fouls and a half, and you get a blue card, and 6 fouls, and you're gone. So it is something to keep an eye on. In my opinion, for Sunday's game, if Utica is going to pull it off, it's not so much. Well, obviously, they need to contain Frank. And it's the same thing I kind of said about taking on Ian Bennett Friday night, is you're not going to shut them down, but you need to limit them. They're too good at what they do. And if you can do that, you find yourself offensively, you stand a good chance. Utica has enough veteran presence in the midfield between co-captain Nate Bordeaux. You have Slavisa Uba-Peripovic. You have out of the back Jake Schindler, who is a mountain of a man himself. I've described him as a linebacker who decided he didn't want to play football and wanted to play football.
He defended and bodied up against Frank quite well last season when the Tropics took on the Fury. He certainly, I don't want to say he shut Frank down, but he certainly played Frank exceptionally well as a member of the Tropics.
Yeah, I look forward to watching that matchup. That should be very entertaining. Up top, Utica, again, they've got the weapons. They just haven't been firing on all cylinders yet. And we're hoping that the game Friday kind of gets them going before the game on Sunday.
I have no beefs with Utica. Obviously, with a podcast partner who's from there, who's a big fan of that part of upstate New York. I want to see you guys turn it around, but obviously, I don't want to see you guys turn it around against my team.
Yeah.
So, shock, right?
Yeah, I get it. Like, no qualms against Ontario. I like the arena. I love your guys' broadcast. You bring a lot of energy to it, and a lot of knowledge.
Thank you.
And from just a fan standpoint, it's very entertaining to watch. I know you get critiques from. I know you get some critiques from In the Box on the technical aspect, but I'm not an AV guy myself, so.
We've gotten better. Adam Granatella happened to put us up to number 2 as a result of the last broadcast that we did. So, hey, look, here's the deal. Last season we were all new. The production team, the broadcast team, we all got thrown into the fire. And it worked out quite well because, well, we all kind of learned on the fly. Now we're all comfortable working with each other. We got awesome chemistry. I love our production guy. Mike is – they could say what they wanted about some of the mistakes he makes. They would never say to him in person because Mike was a college basketball player. Mike's nearly 7 foot tall. So criticize him all you want. Mike will step on people quicker than Frank would. And so we certainly enjoy, what we've been doing. We love the game. Again, I'm not going to say we're veterans of it. We all came aboard recently, but we love it. And while I'll acknowledge we make our mistakes and all that other stuff again because we're new, what we make up for potentially in mistakes is we pick up for in passion and knowledge. Like nobody will ever. They could say what they want about me, but they can never say that we don't bring a passionate broadcast. We don't bring knowledge because we certainly do. And at the very least, we don't mispronounce people's names. So I know that was always a big pet peeve along the lines. But we're here. We're here for the long run. We're going to improve. And, you're going to be stuck with Philly and the Doctor for a little while on those Ontario Fury broadcasts.
Well, there will be no complaining about that on my end.
As long as Panda's on there, right? Because Panda's always fun to listen to.
Of course, you can't forget Panda.
Panda's very easy on the eyes. Yeah, I'll always happily bring up my wife. I mean, I know she's very easy on the eyes. I get it. I married her, and just having her along the lines to do the broadcast and the podcast makes me very fortunate. Because in reality, I'm never spending any time away from her. We're always doing stuff like this together and having fun.
Well, that's a great thing to have. Before we turn to the predictions and wrap this up, I do want to ask, how are you feeling after your bout with COVID?
So it's been an interesting story. So I was with Panda. We went to Italy in February of 2020. We were down in Rome, literally as things were exploding in the north. And so Rome was fine where we were. But once we took a trip to Florence, we started seeing the masks and the fears of things. And at one point, like the day before we were going to leave Rome, we didn't know if we'd be able to. We avoided COVID then. We avoided it over the course of the pandemic. My wife is a nurse. She avoided it then. We went to maybe we haphazardly went to Vegas a couple of times. I'll just say I needed to live my life. I just did. Still hadn't caught COVID. And then Christmas Eve, well, we happened to spend time with our friends that we spent time with all year long. One person caught it. The other person caught it. Everybody tested positive, but me. didn't test positive. I tested negative. 3 days later, being in a household with somebody who tested positive, I was sure as hell going to get it. I'll tell you this. I'd say maybe like a 2 or 3 hour spell in which I didn't feel great. A mild fever, slight shivers, a Tylenol, and I was good to go the entire time. I'm vaccinated. I'm boosted. The Tylenol really suppressed everything. And if I didn't know any better, I would have gone about my business. I would have gone to the gym. I would have rode my bike. I would have went out. I'm fortunate that I didn't have a rough bout. Panda didn't have a rough bout. We had friends that unfortunately passed before the vaccination was available. The doctor, my co-host, Jonathan Reimer, on the other hand, he got his butt kicked by it. Waking up with bloody noses, a really bad flu, but he wasn't boosted. So I'm not advocating for or against, but everybody within my circle of friends, anybody that was boosted, it was a cakewalk. Anybody that wasn't had to battle it a little more. But we're fortunate to have caught it when we did. As weird as this may sound, I'm happy to have caught it because I didn't have to shell out a boatload of money on a last-minute New Year's plan. So that was kind of cool. We obviously had a game to call against San Diego. I'm at the United States Soccer Coaches Convention here in Kansas City representing my LAFC podcast, so I wouldn't want to miss that. And Panda and I are going to the Super Bowl as well, so I'd rather deal with this crap now than have to deal with it later. But thank the heavens, maybe thank science, thank faith, whatever you want to thank. It was very easy to deal with, and I'm glad I came out on the other side.
Well, glad to hear as far as COVID goes, you had a easy run of it and you're back on your feet, ready for the rest of the season.
100%. I'm pumped, ready to roll, rock and roll. I still would have been able to bring the same amount of enthusiasm even with it. So I don't know for whatever that means. Again, it's just an advocating, get your booster shot. I don't know anything about anything. The only thing I know is the older I get, the more I realize I don't know a thing about anything. But I guess like doing what I did, the science has helped, faith has helped. Having a wife who's a nurse at a really good hospital helps too.
Yeah, I'm boosted myself, and somehow through all of this, I've been to college basketball games, I've been to baseball games. I haven't caught it yet, and I'm incredibly lucky, and I'm incredibly worried that with my luck, I will catch it in the next 2 weeks and won't be able to make the trip out to California. So I'm doing everything I can, double mask, staying at home as much as I can, but because I've never been to California.
If you look at it from a glass half full perspective, maybe you get it here, it's not so bad, and you just get to hang out here a little while longer.
Yeah.
There's a lot to do in California, man. Like, look, I'm not a native to California, but I love it. There's always stuff to do. February 4th at the LA Coliseum, they got NASCAR going on. I don't give a damn about NASCAR. I don't even understand NASCAR, but I'm going to go see NASCAR because it's in my backyard. Why not? There's always something going on, and that's what I love about LA. There's plenty to hate, but you can never say you're ever bored in LA, and that's certainly what I appreciate about this town. Obviously, the weather being the biggest part of it. You never realize, I don't know if this applies to everybody, but I guess I never acknowledged any type of potential seasonal adjustment depression disorder I had until I moved out to LA. I'm never miserable. I walk outside, even if I'm hungover or whatever, it's 70 degrees, the sunshine blasts me in the face. I'm like, all right, let's start our day. As opposed to living and working in New York City where I'm hungover. It's Monday and it's 23 degrees in January and it's snowing outside on my way from 85th and 3rd down in the financial district. That sucked. But anyway, this isn't a California like pro speech here.
Well, excited for the trip, excited to meet in person, and let's get to our predictions here, and I'll let you go enjoy the rest of your night in KC.
So, look, here's the deal, and I appreciate, again, you having me on your show. Thank you for being patient with me in terms of, like, coming on. Obviously, I know the scheduling conflicts have been something, but I'm going to say this game goes into overtime. Flip of a coin, but I can't say anything negative about the Fury. I say we go into OT 7-6 Fury. You
7-6
get a point out of it.
At this point in the season, I will cling to every point we can get. As far as my prediction for this game goes, I'll let you know what Brandon and Michelle said. And they both have the Fury winning. Michelle's original prediction was 12-5 Fury.
Okay.
Brandon has it closer at 7-4. Weirdly, I'm going to be the optimistic one this time. Another good crowd on a Sunday afternoon. You won't, because New York, fortunately, won't have to worry about the Bills playing until later in the day. So no reason to not come out.
Very good point.
The defense has been getting better. Wilkin has turned into a completely different keeper here in Utica than he was with Rochester, and part of that is because the defense is better in front of him. I think it goes 6-5 Utica.
Okay.
I agree with overtime, though. I do think this can be a very hard-fought, close battle. But I'm hoping that with coming off of Friday and dealing with Ian Bennett and having a quick practice run at shutting down one of the league's best, they'll be able to turn that around real quick and apply it 2 days later.
I mean, that's a fair bet. Look, the Fury are going to be going up against you guys, and you guys bring the ruckus more so than really any other team does. And that includes, the Sockers. I mean, you guys have fantastic attendance. So you basically have a seventh man advantage in that respect. So you guys get loud, rattle the Fury a little bit, see how the fatigue goes against the game against Baltimore. Yeah, I think it'll be a close game one way or another, which is why I said we flip the coin for who wins in overtime. Although I do like Michelle's pick, but that's just
No, thank you for taking the time to join me and tell us a little bit about the Fury, because I've watched a few games, but we're not very familiar with them on the East Coast.
Yeah, no worries. Obviously, I had to pay attention a little bit about what you guys have done, but having had a couple of players that went to San Diego and went to Florida, I got to know the players on the team a little better. And again, having had the fortune of spending probably a half hour, 35, 45-minute conversation with Tommy Tanner, like that was fun. So I really like what he's done. I really like the history of what Utica City has done. I love the fan base, and I'm a little jealous. You guys have this really awesome T-shirt in your merch stand. It says beer and then soccer with the Utica logo on it. I love that shirt. I think it is so great. I mean, beer, soccer. There's maybe one other thing I would add in there that would make it the most incredible T-shirt ever. But beer and soccer together, those are two beautiful things.
Yeah. So let me show you this, because we made some fan jerseys a couple of years ago for our games against Milwaukee, since they have Milwaukee's best and Utica has Utica's club. And we went ahead and threw the UC logo on there and changed up the Utica logo colors to match UC with the red and the gold.
I'm having a tough time seeing it with the screensaver.
Hold on. Yeah, that automatic background it likes to hide once my face it turns it into a green screen. I can do a quick setting. Video, no background.
Oh, that's dope. I love that.
I don't know if you know this. Just the back, we threw a number in Utica City on it. And then those of us that had some made for ourselves threw our names and own numbers on it. So like Ray Biggs in the broadcast booth has one. Every one of us in the Keepers fan club has one. The FC Fanatic got his own. But yeah, that beer and soccer.
They're very cool jerseys. I certainly like them.
There's something we'd love to see the team do. But I don't know if you know this about Utica Club. It was the first beer sold after Prohibition ended.
Oh, really?
Within minutes.
No, I can't say I knew that. Maybe Jonathan does because he's a bit of a booze enthusiast, having a sommelier certification and working in the industry. But I had no clue. That's fun. Fun bit of knowledge.
Yeah, the owner of the brewery in Utica at the time had contacts in DC. So the moment it was passed, the guy down there ran to the phone and called up here, and all of a sudden these vats of beer that had been stashed away in the basement came rolling out.
Oh, isn't that something? I love it. I think I'm going to go have myself a beer before I call it a nightcap now.
All right. Well, again, thank you for joining us. Do you have anything you want to plug besides your Stryking Fury podcast?
Yeah, so, I obviously am the play-by-play broadcaster for the Ontario Fury. I do a podcast. And I would probably say that all right, I'll say it for a fact that I'm the only person within the Major Arena Soccer League that does a podcast for his team with his wife. I think so anyway. If I'm wrong, correct me. So there's Stryking Fury with Philly the Panda and the Doctor. I'm also very big into Major League Soccer. I run the Los Angeles Football Club's biggest podcast called Defenders of the Bank. It's played in 88 countries, hundreds of thousands of downloads. It's really why I got the invite to Kansas City. And more importantly than anything I'm doing, I want to plug something Panda's doing. There's the NWSL, the Women's Pro League. There's a new team coming out in Los Angeles called Angel City FC. If you're a fan of the U.S. Women's National Team, you would have heard of that of a Kristen Press. She is on our team. She does a podcast called Angel City Chicks. Her partner in crime is my co-host girlfriend from the LAFC podcast, and they run a fantastic show. They pretty much are Angel City's show. They've already interviewed the president and founder of the team. They'll probably have Kristen Press on. I know they have Preya, the head coach that the team got from Gotham. Check them out. I think they're not only going to be a big deal in the world of women's soccer and NWSL, I think they will be a force to reckon with among all soccer podcasts. So Angel City Chicks for them, Defenders of the Bank if you're interested in the Los Angeles Football Club, and of course Stryking Fury if you're interested in the Ontario Fury, with a few more podcasts to come later on next year.
All right, really branching yourself out.
Oh yeah, we're creating a media empire, baby. We're going to attack Dave Portnoy and Barstool Sports in our own fun little way.
Well, I look forward to it.
Thank you. Appreciate the support, and again, thank you so much for having me on. I love this. Anytime you want me on the show, anytime you want to chat, whatever the case may be. Like, I'm a big fan, and if there's anything you could say, you got the Ontario Fury support here out in the West Coast for Utica City.
Well, thank you. And enjoy the rest of your night. Enjoy your nightcap.
I appreciate that. You have a good night as well. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for listening to the Keeper's Corner podcast. Be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to us so you never miss an episode. If that podcast app also has reviews, be sure to leave us 5 stars to let us know how we're doing and reach a larger audience. It really helps us out. You can find us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Keeper Corners Pod. And you can always find us there talking UCFC soccer. Thanks again for the support. It's truly appreciated. One last thing. Go Utica.